This is an essential guide for anyone who owns a business that, let's be honest, currently feels less like a vessel of freedom and more like a tyrannical, unfireable boss.
It's a feeling a lot of people know. And today we are diving deep into Michael E. Gerber's seminal work, The E-Myth Revisited. Why most small businesses don't work and what to do about it.
And our sources today, they go way beyond just a basic summary. We're covering everything from the fundamental psychological traps that ensnare founders to the precise, systematic, the strategic solutions that you need for genuine entrepreneurial freedom.
And the core problem Gerber addresses is, well, it's brutal truth. And it affects millions of people, probably a lot of people listening right
Oh,
now.
absolutely.
Most small businesses, especially ones started by really skilled people, they either fail spectacularly within the first 5 years,
Yeah.
or they survive, but only because the people who own them work incessantly for a minimal return.
They're not businesses. They're functional jobs, and often the worst job you could possibly imagine. It's not a functional, scalable business.
Exactly. And Gerber introduces this profound, almost spiritual idea right at the beginning. He says, your business is nothing more than a distinct reflection of who you are,
A mirror.
a perfect mirror. The organization out there is just a manifestation of the organization, or the lack of it in here.
So if your business is sloppy,
You're thinking is sloppy. If you're disorganized, your business will be disorganized. It's that direct.
yeah,
The only way your business can continuously change and thrive is if you change first. You have to become the kind of person who, well, who deserves to own a thriving system.
okay, let's unpack that transformation. Our mission today is to identify and really thoroughly analyze the 4 profound ideas that Gerber lays out to solve this endemic chaos. We're going to cover the E-myth itself. That's the fatal assumption that just ruins nearly every founder. Then we'll explore the concept of the turnkey revolution, which is the philosophy of building a business as a product.
And after that, we'll tackle the step-by-step business development process. And finally, we'll look at how all these elements are systematically applied to transform that life-consuming job into an exciting, rewarding, and this is key, a sellable enterprise.
Let's do it.
All right, so to really understand why so many small businesses struggle and, ultimately fail, we have to start at the beginning. We have to look at the founder's origin story.
And it's almost always the same, isn't it?
It's universally the same. Doesn't matter if you're in Silicon Valley or on Main Street. The person who starts a business is typically a technician.
Okay, define technician for us.
A technician is a person who is excellent at their technical craft while working for someone else. They're the carpenter, the bookkeeper, the baker, the hairdresser, the mechanic, the programmer.
They were damn good at what they did, the star employee, the one the boss always relied on to get the actual work done.
Exactly. And then one day something happens. It could be anything. It could be something trivial.
Sure.
A sideways glance from the boss, a frustrating meeting, maybe just a desire for a bigger paycheck.
Or a milestone birthday that makes you question everything.
Right. It doesn't matter what it is, but it triggers what Gerber calls the entrepreneurial seizure.
A seizure, that sounds violent.
It is, in a way. It's this glorious self-destructive moment of delusion where the technician thinks, wait a minute, I know as much about this business as my boss does. Any dummy can run a business. I'm working for one.
Huh. I think a lot of people have had that thought.
And the excitement of cutting the cord of independence, it becomes an obsession. But here's the critical distinction. They don't really want to start a business. They just want to stop working for a boss and keep doing the work they love only for themselves.
And that's the trap. That leads directly and tragically to the most disastrous idea in all of small business, the one that guarantees chaos and failure.
The fatal assumption.
The fatal assumption.
And we have to define this really, really clearly because it is the root of the entire nightmare. The fatal assumption is the belief that if you understand the technical work of a business, you automatically understand a business that does that technical work.
And that's just not true.
It's not true at all. Gerber states it emphatically. You might be the world's best pastry chef, but that tells you nothing about managing inventory or handling payroll or negotiating commercial leases or creating a management system for a staff of 10 people.
The technical work and the business structure required to deliver that work, they're 2 completely different disciplines.
Totally different. Yet, the carpenter starts the contracting company, the hairdresser opens the salon, the programmer launches the software startup, and they fall right into the abyss because they only brought their technical hat to the job.
And their specialty, the very thing they loved and were great at, it becomes their biggest liability. That paradox is fascinating.
It's a huge paradox. Think about it for a second. If the carpenter didn't know how to frame a perfect wall, he'd be forced, from day one, to learn the strategic side.
You'd have to learn management, marketing systems.
Right. To hire and manage someone who could frame the wall.
Oh.
But instead, because he's so good at it, he just jumps back into doing the technical job he loves. It's an escape. He's escaping the difficult, unfamiliar work of actually building a business structure.
And what was supposed to be this grand journey toward freedom,
It turns into profound enslavement.
that single job they enjoyed, the baking, the coding, the carpentry, suddenly becomes that one job, plus a dozen others they don't know how to do at all.
Buying supplies, setting prices, selling, shipping, cleaning the toilets,
Yeah.
and crucially, figuring out the accounting and the HR. They just become the technician who shows up to work every day, completely trapped.
That is the technician's nightmare. The business started for freedom, now owns the founder entirely.
It can't survive without the founder's presence, their talent, their constant effort. It stops being an opportunity and becomes this consuming entity.
Let's make this real. The classic case study from the source material is the story of Sarah and her shop, All About Pies.
Ah, Sarah. Yes, a perfect example. So Sarah started All About Pies because she genuinely, deeply loved baking. It was her passion, her solace, her art.
But when she spoke with Gerber 3 years later,
3 years later, she confessed that she fiercely hated the smell and the sight of pies. That love, that purpose, it was completely gone, vanished.
why? What happened? Why such an intense reversal?
Because she was working from 3 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, every single day, without a break.
Wow.
She was doing the technical work, which was the baking. She was doing the managerial work, cleanup, inventory, scheduling. And she was trying to do the entrepreneurial work, figuring out how to pay the rent and make ends meet.
So the one job she loved was just swallowed whole by the 12 jobs she hated and knew nothing about.
Exactly. And the business structure had become so dependent on her personality, on her being there, that if she wasn't there, the customers went somewhere else. There was no system. There was just Sarah.
She confused baking good pies with running a good business.
And the consequence, as Gerber told her, is that if all you want from a business is the opportunity to do what you did before, get paid a bit more, and have more freedom, that self-indulgence, that technical impulse, it will eventually consume both you and your business.
So you can't just play the role of the technician.
You can't. You can't ignore the roles of the entrepreneur and the manager just because you're unprepared or, frankly, unwilling to play them. And that realization is the first very painful step toward maturity for a business owner.
You have to change your identity before the business can change.
That's it.
Okay, so if the technician is the inevitable starting point for most people, the solution has to lie in finding some kind of balance.
It does. A balance among the 3 personalities Gerber says exist inside every single founder. It's an internal conflict. It's a constant 3-way war that's waged every single day inside the owner's head. Absolutely. And those 3 conflicting personalities are the entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician. When one of them dominates, the business suffers badly.
Let's start with the entrepreneur, because that's the personality that drives the seizure in the first place, right?
That's the spark. The entrepreneur is the visionary, the dreamer, the great innovator. They live entirely in the future. They're the ones who can turn a trivial condition into an exceptional opportunity.
So they're the big picture person.
The biggest picture. They are the energy, the catalyst for change. They're always engaged in what Gerber calls future work, constantly asking, I wonder, I wonder, I wonder.
I love that phrasing.
It's perfect, isn't it? They see the overall integrated vision of the world and they generate the overall system from which all the business's parts have to be derived. They're very comfortable with abstraction and constant change.
Okay, so that's the entrepreneur. Then you have the manager, who sounds like the total opposite, the essential counterweight, the pragmatist.
Exactly. The manager lives in the past. They're fretting over logistics, process, and paperwork. They crave order, predictability, and organization.
They want things to be neat.
They want things in neat little boxes. Their primary goal is to maintain commitments and ensure things are done the same way every single time. They want to reduce all work to the system. And because of that love for order, they are deeply suspicious of the entrepreneur's wild new ideas because those ideas threaten stability.
Okay, and finally, the technician, who we've already spent a lot of time defining.
Right. The technician lives strictly in the present. They are happiest when they are doing the work. They mistrust abstraction and change. They see thinking and strategic planning as just getting in the way of the actual productive labor.
We're the doers.
They're the doers who ensure today's output is delivered. And the problem, as you said, is the tyranny of lopsidedness. In most small businesses, the technician personality just completely dominates, and that leads to this internal war.
And the business itself becomes a reflection of that imbalance.
A perfect reflection. Look at the consequences. A technician-driven business works until it drops. It's focused tactically on immediate tasks, but has absolutely no strategic direction. It's effective today, but it's doomed tomorrow.
And a manager-driven business.
A manager-driven business, conversely, dies very neatly in little gray boxes, as Gerber puts it. It's all procedure and no purpose, no innovation. It suffocates under its own organization.
And an entrepreneurial business.
That dies dramatically and very quickly because it has all these big, amazing ideas, but lacks the order and execution that the manager and the technician provide. This internal battle is one no single personality can win alone. It requires all three.
And this internal war, it's mirrored in the external life cycle of the business, the life cycle of chaos, starting with what he calls infancy.
Infancy is the time of the master juggler. This is where the owner and the business are one and the same. It's Joe's place. It's the era of 10, 12, 14-hour days sustained only by optimism and the founder's sheer technical talent and boundless effort.
The business is literally surviving on the owner's energy.
Solely on their energy. But the body just can't keep up. The master juggler starts dropping balls, customers start to complain, quality slips because the owner is completely overwhelmed, and then that painful realization hits.
What's that?
The business has become the very boss they thought they left behind.
Ooh.
Infancy ends when the owner finally realizes they simply cannot do it all themselves. And this is where most small business failures actually occur. The owner, exhausted and disillusioned, just locks the door and walks away.
But the ones who survive move into adolescence.
Adolescence.
Yeah.
And this is where the fatal error of the technician owner gets compounded. So what kind of help does the overloaded technician inevitably seek out?
More technical help.
Exactly. They don't hire a systems designer or process manager. They hire someone who can take a technical job off their hands. They hire Harry the bookkeeper or Elizabeth the new pie baker.
And the owner, feeling relieved, immediately engages in what Gerber calls management by abdication.
Yes. They basically tell Harry or Elizabeth, you handle the books or you handle the baking. I don't care how you do it. Just make sure I don't have to worry about it anymore.
And for a moment, the owner, who is not used to being a manager, feels free. But this is where the chaos just accelerates, right?
It accelerates like crazy because Harry manages by his comfort level, not by the standards of the business. Harry has no position contract, no defined system, no framework for judgment. He just does what he thinks is right, which inevitably diverges from what the owner expects and, more importantly, what the customer expects.
And the owner, seeing errors everywhere, suddenly just snaps.
They snap. The technician in them sees the wrong packaging or the wrong formula or the wrong approach, and they run back in to be the master juggler again.
And they say, see, I told you, no one cares about my business the way I do.
And that's the conclusion they draw. But the process of deterioration didn't begin when the employee made a mistake. It began the moment management by abdication started.
Because the owner never gave Harry a system to manage. They only gave him work.
Exactly. So the owner then interferes, correcting the work, and the employees just look at each other and say, well, that's just the boss being the boss.
Mm-hmm.
And they stop taking responsibility, because why would they? The boss is just going to swoop in and change it anyway.
The owner's interference is a response to the fact that they are now way beyond their comfort zone.
Growth has exceeded their ability to control it personally. And this is where you see the three typical paths to adolescent failure start to diverge.
Okay, what's the first path?
The first path is getting small again. The technician tries to eliminate the chaos by firing employees, reducing inventory, and basically retreating back to the perceived safety of infancy.
Back to doing everything alone, just to regain that comfortable control.
But it's a complete delusion. It's a temporary respite. 6 weeks or 6 years later, the owner realizes the unavoidable truth. You don't own a business, you own a job. And it's the worst job in the world.
Because you can't close it, you can't leave it, and you certainly can't sell it. Who would buy a job that requires 80 hours a week of the current owner's personal talent? Nobody.
Nobody. The second path is going for broke. This is really common in innovative or high-tech fields where you see explosive growth happen really quickly.
Right.
But the technician focused only on the commodity. the brilliant technology or the product, not the business model. So they just keep growing faster and faster, focused only on scaling sales, until they self-destruct from the uncontrollable momentum. They try to outrun their own chaos.
We see this all the time. Brilliant ideas just ruined by terrible execution and a complete lack of structure.
And the third, and maybe the most devastating path, is adolescent survival. This is for the highly strong-willed, stubborn owner who just refuses to be beaten.
They fight the same battles day after day.
Year after year, they're consumed by the business, putting everything into it, but all they achieve is stasis. They're just fighting to stay where they are instead of growing strategically.
And the emotional toll must be tremendous.
It's unbelievable. The owner becomes a 12-cylinder engine running perpetually on one cylinder until finally the business doesn't explode. They explode. The relationship, the health, the self-respect, it's all consumed.
And the tragedy is that all of this predictable chaos could have been anticipated, it could have been prevented, if the founder had just approached the business with an entrepreneurial perspective from the very start.
From day one.
Okay, so this brings us to the ultimate destination, maturity. And the great insight from Gerber is that mature companies don't just end up mature, they actually start that way.
Yes. They are founded on the entrepreneurial perspective. And that is the vision of a business that works without the owner being personally responsible for every single task.
So it's a fundamental shift in understanding. You have to view the business itself as the product, not just the commodity it sells.
Exactly. The entrepreneur asks, how must the business work to provide maximum results? They're focused on the delivery system. The technician, on the other hand, only asks, what work has to be done? They're focused on internal execution.
And so this model doesn't start with the owner's technical skills, which is the technician's trap. It starts with the customer's needs.
Right. The technician looks inward and asks, how can I sell my skills? The entrepreneur looks outward and asks, what does the customer need, and how can I deliver it systematically and predictably every single time?
The perfect illustration of this radical shift in thinking has to be the story of Ray Kroc and McDonald's.
It's the ultimate example. So Kroc, who was selling milkshake machines at the time, walks into the McDonald Brothers stand in 1952. And he didn't just see burgers, he saw a miracle of efficiency.
He saw the system.
He saw the system. The stand worked like a Swiss watch. It was quick, it was efficient, it was identical, and critically, it was operable by high school kids with minimal training.
And Kroc realized the product wasn't the hamburger, the product was McDonald's.
That was the epiphany. It was a system for producing, cooking, and delivering the commodity with predictable consistency. He didn't see a restaurant, he saw a money machine. And he knew the genius was in the method, not in the meat.
Now, this leads to a key challenge that people often pose to this idea. Ray Kroc was, notoriously ruthless, a cutthroat businessman. Does this system, this turnkey revolution, only work if the founder has that kind of hyper-aggressive drive?
That is a great question, because if the system still relies on the founder's exceptional personality, then it fails the test of being a mature company.
Right, it's just another form of dependence.
But the crucial insight Kroc had, which makes the system totally agnostic to the founder's personality, was recognizing that the business had to work perfectly, because the average franchisee, the average person buying the system, if they were left to their own devices, they assuredly wouldn't run it perfectly.
So the system compensates for human variability.
The system is the stabilizing factor. That distinction, the business format franchise, which focuses on how the business sells and delivers, not what it sells, that's the true genius.
And it's why franchise success rates are so dramatically higher than independent businesses. I think the number is something like a 75% success rate versus 20%.
It's a massive difference, because the system integrates all the necessary elements.
So the core shift for anyone listening must be absolute. You have to start working on the business, not in it. You have to stop viewing your business as just part of your life and start viewing it as a franchise prototype.
A model for 5,000 perfect replicates or clones that you could theoretically sell tomorrow.
And the constant guiding question has to become, how can I give my customer the predictable results he wants systematically rather than personally?
The results have to be systems dependent, not people dependent or expert dependent. You are creating an expert system rather than trying to hire an expert employee, because an expert employee is impossible to replicate at scale.
And this ties directly into the rule of ordinary people.
Yes, the mature company is not built by extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. It's built by creating a system that allows ordinary people to consistently produce extraordinary results.
And that seems counterintuitive.
It does. But building the business around the skills of ordinary people is actually a strategic blessing. It prevents the founder from taking the easy route, which is just hiring a genius to solve a problem.
And forces them to ask the more difficult, creative questions.
Exactly. Questions about how to produce a consistent result without relying on individual talent. It compels the invention of innovative, repeatable system solutions to people problems.
And the system must enforce predictability. We often think of great service as something that's unpredictable, tailored to the moment. But Gerber cautions against this.
He does. He used the example of a barber who's constantly and arbitrarily changing the experience for the customer. Sometimes he'd chat, sometimes he'd be quiet, sometimes he'd play classical music, sometimes rock.
And even though the haircuts were excellent, the customer wasn't sure what to expect next. The experience was inconsistent.
That unpredictability violated the experience they wanted to repeat. The customer wants certainty. What you do in your model is not nearly as important as doing what you do the same way each and every time until it stops working.
And then, and only then,
You change the system, you quantify the result of the change, and you orchestrate the new method for everyone.
Okay, so the franchise prototype is the strategic vision, but the business development process, BDP, is the systematic, tactical methodology for actually realizing that vision. This is the how-to.
This is the engine room. The BDP is the systematic application of 3 phases, and they're aimed squarely at the process by which the business does business. They're aimed at the how.
And those 3 phases are?
They are innovation, quantification, and orchestration. This structured, continuous process becomes the philosophical bedrock of the business. It's essential for continuous learning and strategic expansion.
Let's start with innovation. This is where creativity lives, but again, it's not about innovating the commodity. It's not about inventing a new kind of pie.
No, it's about innovating the process by which the commodity is sold and delivered. Innovation continually poses the question, what is standing in the way of my customer getting what he wants from my business? And, just as important, what is standing in the way of my staff delivering it easily?
That second part is crucial. If an innovation complicates the process for the staff, it's a failure.
It's a total failure. The goal is always simplification. And when you do it right, the entire system becomes a marketing tool that differentiates your business from everyone else.
And this is where we get into the practical, almost shocking power of systemized innovation. The source material provides these specific, actionable innovations that require almost no capital. It's just changing a few words or a color scheme.
Let's take the standard retail interaction. The salesperson says, "May I help you?"
And the customer, who is programmed for defense, immediately says, "No thanks, just looking."
Right. That immediate defensive disengagement is costing retailers immense amounts of sales because the salesperson essentially gave the customer permission to leave the interaction.
So what's the required innovation? How do you orchestrate that for all employees?
You change the script. Instead of, "Hi, may I help you?" you try, "Hi, have you been in here before?" If the answer is yes, you follow up with a scripted sequence about a special new program we have for our repeat customers.
And if the answer is no,
You pivot immediately. "Great. We've created a special new program for people who haven't shopped here before. Let me take just a minute to tell you about it."
so you're engaging their curiosity and avoiding that reflexive no.
Instantly. And the quantifiable data cited by Gerber's clients who did this show that by deploying this one small script change alone, sales increased between 10 and 16%, almost immediately.
That is a massive return on zero investment. That's the power of systemic, quantified innovation. What about visual innovation?
Another great example documented in the sources involved a test of salesperson uniforms. For 3 weeks, they had them wear brown suits. For the next 3 weeks, they wore navy blue suits. And a result. Dramatic and consistent. Sales consistently went up during the second period, the navy blue period. Because marketing studies have shown that navy blue suits outsell brown suits due to psychological associations with authority, trust, and professionalism. But look, the point isn't the color itself. The point is determining what works and then standardizing it across the entire business.
And there was even a subtle behavioral innovation we touched on earlier, the physical touch.
Yes. Research confirmed that simply touching a customer softly on the arm or the elbow or their back sometime during the sales process results in a measurable, small but consistent increase in sales, and positive response.
These are tiny, tested, and quantifiable system changes. That's what innovation is really all about.
Yeah.
It's relentless experimentation on the process of delivery.
But innovation is just a flash of insight if you don't know the impact. Which brings us to the next phase, quantification.
Right. You have to measure.
You have to measure everything related to how you do business. Quantification turns the business into a predictable machine because you can actually read its health chart.
So how many people call each day? How many of those calls are answered within 3 rings? How many prospects ask for a price?
How many steps does it take to get a pie from the oven to the display case? Without quantification, you're just flying blind. You don't know where you are, where you're going, or if your innovations are actually working. The numbers become your ultimate barometer.
They allow you to anticipate problems and identify the weak points in the system.
And once you've innovated a process like the script change, and you've quantified its positive impact, that 16% sales increase, you move to the final and perhaps the most feared phase,
Orchestration.
orchestration.
This is the phase that often sounds so mechanical or stifling to the technician who really values improvisation and their own expertise.
And it is defined as the elimination of discretion or choice at the operating level of your business.
So why is eliminating choice so vital? That sounds so restrictive.
It is, and it's vital because people will do only one thing predictably, and that is be unpredictable. If your business depends on people being consistent, you will fail.
So for your business to be predictable for the customer, your people have to operate predictably.
That's it. Orchestration is the glue that makes the business reliable and consistent. If everyone is just doing their own thing, you're creating chaos, not order.
But this raises a major point of confusion for founders. Doesn't orchestration stifle creativity? Doesn't it demoralize employees who want to feel empowered?
That's the critical misunderstanding. Creativity is absolutely essential, but it must be reserved for the innovation phase. We need creativity to find better scripts, better uniform colors, better processes.
But once the best process is found and quantified,
The job of the operating employee, the technician, is to follow the system perfectly until the system is changed again through a new innovation.
so the business owner's job then is to move creativity upstream. The employee is empowered not to deviate from the system, but to suggest improvements to the system.
And Gerber's definitive statement on this is famous. He says, if you haven't orchestrated it, you don't own it.
And if you don't own it, you can't depend on it, you can't quantify it, and you certainly can't sell it.
This proprietary way of doing business, your unique, documented system, that is the definition of your franchise, regardless of whether you ever hang a franchise sign on the door.
Orchestration is the certainty that is so often absent from every other chaotic human experience. It's doing what you do, saying what you say, looking how you look, consistently until the quantified results tell you to stop.
And then you go right back to innovation to create a new, better system. That integration of innovation, quantification, and orchestration, that's the engine of the BDP. So the BDP is the engine, but it has to be applied systematically across 6 key strategies to build the franchise prototype.
And these strategies are all interconnected. They start not with the business, but with the owner's personal vision.
Exactly. Strategy 1, your primary aim. Before you can figure out what role your business will play in your life, you have to define the life you actually want to live.
So the primary aim is your personal philosophical vision. What do I value most? What kind of life do I want? Spiritually, physically, financially, emotionally.
The source material suggests a profound and honestly often jarring exercise. Imagine your own funeral, 20, 40, or 60 years from now. What would you like the eulogy to say about your life? About your achievements and the way you made people feel?
That script, that
Yeah.
becomes your primary aim.
Yes. And once you have that script, all you need to do is live it out intentionally, measuring your progress against that ultimate standard.
Because without that clear personal picture, your life will just drift aimlessly and your business will reflect that aimlessness.
Great people have a vision of their lives that they practice emulating every single day. They go to work on their lives, not just in their lives.
This is where that inner chaos meets the outer chaos. We confront what Gerber calls the curtain we put up between ourselves and reality.
Yes, and many founders, including Gerber himself early in his career, they realize that the chaos out there in their disorganized business is just a reflection of the chaos in here. Their own internal turmoil, their false assumptions, their fear of commitment.
So the business becomes this tangible vehicle for changing yourself. It forces you to address your own flaws because they show up instantly in the business's results.
The business has to be shaped by this primary aim. It has to serve as a symbol for the life you wish to live, a visible manifestation of who you are and what you believe.
Okay, so that's the primary aim. Then comes strategy two, your strategic objective.
Right. So once the personal vision is set, the strategic objective defines the tangible, measurable standards and scope of the finished business, the franchise prototype.
Where is the business going? How big will it be?
Sarah the baker, for example, she defined hers as achieving $1.8 million in annual sales, a 15% net profit, and 4 functional locations in 7 years. It has to be defined by numbers.
And this objective instantly shifts the focus back to that product versus commodity distinction.
Absolutely. When you ask most owners what business they're in, they respond with a commodity. Pies, hot tubs, IT consulting. But the commodity is just the physical thing the customer walks out with. The product is the feeling the customer receives as he walks out.
People buy feelings, not things.
Always. They buy peace of mind or control, order, status, power. The strategic objective has to anticipate and satisfy these irrational, unconscious feelings that are really driving the purchasing decisions.
And this leads to the two essential pillars of marketing that you need to define that strategic objective, demographics and psychographics.
Yes, demographics tell you who buys. That's the easy stuff: age, income, location, family status, measurable facts.
But psychographics tell you the vastly more important metric.
Why they buy. These are their irrational, unconscious expectations, their attitudes, their beliefs.
And we have to dwell on this because it really challenges the technician's rational view of the world.
It does. Buying decisions are made irrationally, instantaneously, in the unconscious mind. The conscious mind just assembles the rational armament, the pros and the cons, to support the emotional decision that's already been made. If your marketing only targets the rational mind, you lose.
You have to understand the psychological vulnerability that good marketing exploits.
The customer's deep-seated fear of lack of control, or their desire for recognition, or their need for certainty. For instance, why did IBM choose blue as their corporate color?
I don't know.
Because blue is preferable to orange for their target consumer demographic. It signals trust and stability. We're all influenced by colors and shapes and scripted words in ways we don't rationally process.
So here's the actionable takeaway for the listener. To figure out the demographics and psychographics of your most probable customer, you have to stop guessing and start asking.
You have to. You create a simple questionnaire and you exchange it for a free product, a free pie, a free consultation, a free cup of coffee.
And the questions need to be designed to extract those unconscious preferences.
Right. You ask, what are your favorite non-related brands? What car do you drive? What clothing do you wear? Where do you vacation? What are your preferred colors in your home and your office? What kind of music do you listen to?
By cross-referencing this information, you can start to construct a psychographic reality and then position your prototype to match it.
You can't just ask them, what are your irrational expectations?
Yeah.
But you can find out what visual, verbal, and sensory inputs appeal to their emotional drivers.
Okay, that brings us to strategy 3, your organizational strategy. Once you know the life you want and the business you need to support it, you have to organize the business around functions. What needs to be done, rather than personalities, who's available.
Yes. Most chaotic businesses, like our old friend Sarah's Pies, they rely on luck. The owner or partners take turns doing whatever task is on fire that day. It's a structural disaster.
Without an organization chart, who's truly accountable for anything?
No one is. The organizational strategy starts with drawing an organization chart for the finished business, for the $1.8 million mature prototype.
And this structure defines all the necessary roles: shareholders, COO, VP of Marketing, VP of Operations, tactical managers, and it establishes a logical hierarchy. Even if you, the owner, are the only employee and you fill every single box on the chart.
And every single one of those positions must have a position contract. This is a detailed summary of the results to be achieved. For example, the salesperson delivers 5 qualified appointments per week.
So it's not a fuzzy job description. It's a summary of the rules of the company's game for that specific role.
Exactly. And the beauty of this chart is that it allows for prototyping the position. As the owner, you work in the position doing the tactical work, like working the cash register, while you are simultaneously working on the position, doing the strategic work of the VP of Operations.
This is the key to freeing yourself.
Let's take the example of Murray, a founder who had to step away from sales. So Murray worked as the salesperson, systematically testing scripts, testing different uniforms, quantifying the impact of all his innovations and writing them all down into a sales operations manual. He created the perfect system for that position.
So when he finally hired a new employee, he didn't just hire a person. He hired someone to run his perfected system.
That's it. He gave them the manual, he trained them on the system, and he told them the story and the dream of the company. And at that moment, Murray replaced himself with a system that works in the hands of an ordinary person.
He could then step up to sales manager and start engaging in strategic work on the department, not tactical work in the department.
That is the critical mechanical step in freeing yourself from the day-to-day operations.
Okay, strategy 4, your management strategy.
You do not need highly paid professional managers with finely honed people skills. In fact, relying on people skills is dangerous because those managers will just manage by their personality standards, not your business standards.
What you need is a management system. The mantra is absolute. The system is the solution.
A manager manages the system manages the people.
Let's revisit that perfect case study, the Venetia Hotel.
Yes. The owner designed the entire customer experience as a system. A guest arrives late, finds the lobby warm and inviting. The receptionist, wearing a specific uniform with a logo pin, checks them in with remarkable ease, using a scripted presentation. The room is opulent, the quilt is turned down, the pillows are plugged, and a mint is resting on each one.
But the truly genius orchestrated details are the small things.
They are. A match lying diagonally across the hearth for the pre-prepared fireplace. In the morning, a pot of the guest's preferred coffee is perking automatically, and their preferred newspaper is waiting at the door.
Because the system knew. The guest wasn't asked their preferences again after the first visit.
The system remembered. The match, the mint, the coffee, the newspaper. It wasn't the objects that mattered. It was the fact that somebody heard the guest every single time without them having to say a word. That creates emotional resonance and certainty.
And who is the manager running this seamless, luxurious operation?
A 29-year-old former short-order cook with almost no hotel experience.
How could he run it?
Because he showed Gerber his operations manual, which was nothing more than a series of color-coded checklists. A management system.
The manager manages the system, not the people. The system is the high-paid genius. The people just manage the genius.
The owner had worked it all out in advance. Every element, even the timing of the automated outdoor lighting, delivered a predictable, delightful result. This reduces risk and makes the results repeatable across 5,000 replicates.
All right, strategy 5, your people strategy. Now we have to address the human element. How do you get ordinary people to buy into the system and not just mechanically execute checklists with minimal enthusiasm?
You have to create a game worth playing.
The game worth playing.
You can't just force people to do what you want. You have to create an environment where doing it well is more important to them than not doing it. The business owner has to communicate a profound idea behind the work of philosophy or a moral purpose that is more important than the task itself.
Like the Venetia Hotel owner told his manager, the work we do is a reflection of who we are. If we're sloppy at it, it's because we're sloppy inside.
So the job, therefore, is not just cleaning rooms or checking guests in. It's an internal job. It's a commitment to excellence. The business becomes a kind of martial arts dojo, a place to practice being the best you can be, where the true combat is between the person you are today and the person you want to become.
And the game has to be real. It has to reflect the owner's core values.
It does. And the rules of the game have to include: never create a game you are unwilling to play yourself. Make sure there are specific ways of winning without ending the game, like bonuses or recognition. And constantly communicate the idea behind the work. If the owner violates the spirit of the game, no one else will adhere to the systems.
And recruitment for this game, then, focuses on finding people who want something more than just a paycheck.
The hotel manager's hiring process was completely systemized. It included reviewing the boss's philosophy, summarizing the company's system, touring the facilities to show the interdependence of people and systems, and reviewing the position contract, all before the employee even started working.
So you ensure that the idea behind the work is communicated as the most important thing.
Exactly. If a candidate says, "I just want to bake pies," they won't be hired. They have to say, "I want to be part of a system that delivers predictable excellence."
The system is the solution, but without an idea worth pursuing, there can be no effective people strategy at all.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to our final strategy. Strategy 6. Your system's strategy, hard and soft, this is where everything integrates.
The final strategy integrates the prototype by detailing the physical and the communication systems that guarantee that consistency.
Let's start with hard systems.
Hard systems are the physical, non-human solutions designed to prevent problems. The classic example is eMyth Worldwide installing a clear lucite collar around the marker boards in their offices.
Why?
To prevent blue ink from smudging onto the walls when someone writes too high, it was a simple physical system solution to a typically people-intensive problem. It eliminated the need for constant painting and managerial policing.
Okay, so that's hard systems. Then there are soft systems.
Soft systems are the documented and scripted human interactions. They're designed to leverage ordinary people to produce extraordinary consistent results. Gerber calls this the PowerPoint selling system.
So it's a structured, non-improvisational conversation with the customer.
Precisely. And the sources outline 3 essential benchmarks of this soft selling system: the appointment presentation, the needs analysis presentation, and the solutions presentation.
The goal is to move the customer through 3 stages of emotional commitment that then leads to the final rational sale.
The appointment presentation have only one purpose: to make an appointment for the next step. It engages the prospect's unconscious mind by speaking primarily about the product, the feeling, like financial control, rather than the commodity.
So the script might start with something like, "Have you seen the remarkable new things that are being done to control money these days?"
That's the kind of thing. This approach subtly tells the prospect that they are currently out of control, but they can regain it through your system. It achieves an emotional commitment almost instantly. It's about creating curiosity and setting the agenda, not closing the deal.
Then the needs analysis presentation follows.
And that's used to reestablish that emotional commitment and then introduce the company's specific systematized solution, the money controlling system or the pie baking system. It communicates expertise and a willingness to help the prospect systematically, usually through a detailed, standardized questionnaire.
The same one you might use to gather your psychographic data.
Often, yes. And finally, the solutions presentation is actually the easiest part. Most salespeople think selling is closing, but Gerber says selling is opening.
If the first 2 benchmarks, the emotional engagement and the system explanation, are executed correctly, the sale is already made.
It is. The solutions presentation simply provides the rational armament, the financial report, the proposal, the specific product details to support the emotional commitment that's already been determined.
So the final question is simple and orchestrated.
Something like, of the options we've suggested here, Mr. Jackson, which do you feel would best serve you right now? And then you wait for the answer.
And whether you're selling high-tech services or pies or consulting, this scripted process ensures that the result is consistent and predictable regardless of the individual talent of the salesperson.
The system works, leveraging ordinary people to achieve extraordinary, repeatable results.
So let's bring this all back together. The success of the business development process, it hinges entirely on appreciating the total integration of all 6 of these strategies.
It does. Your primary aim, your strategic objective, your organizational strategy, management, people, marketing, and system strategies, they are all totally interdependent. They have to work in concert.
To approach any part of your business as separate from the rest is, well, it's lunacy, because everything in your business affects everything else.
The franchise prototype is defined by that complete and utter integration. It's a harmonious organism.
You know, we started by saying the chaos out there is a reflection of the chaos in here, in you, the founder. Your small business isn't just a commercial venture.
No, it's the bridge between your inner world and the external world you wish to create. It becomes a visible manifestation of who you are and what you believe. When you change the system, you change yourself.
But the path of freedom, this entrepreneurial path, it is constantly threatened. It's threatened by the temptation of the comfort zone.
That false mask, that tight little cozy planet you place in front of your face.
Yeah.
Comfort makes cowards of us all. It allows the technician to retreat back into what is familiar, but ultimately destructive.
So to guard your path, you have to self-execute what he calls a leap of faith. Choosing the path where your spirit is waiting for you in the future, not retreating to the safety and familiarity of the past.
You have to choose to be intentional rather than accidental in every single decision you make about your business and really about your life.
This is more than a prescription for success. It's a profound call to learning how to feel, think, and act differently. It demands a higher standard of self-awareness and discipline.
It really does.
And so here's the final provocative thought for you. Gerber emphasizes that you have to stop thinking about this framework and start doing it. You will not truly understand the power of orchestration or quantification or the organizational chart until you take that first step and actually apply it.
Because, as the old saying goes, When you hear something, you forget it. When you see something, you remember it. But not until you do something will you understand it.
It is time to turn this incredible framework into an innovation in your own life and your own business.